Howdy folks, today we have this amazing JCM900 Marshall. I've got the head here, I've popped it up onto the bench top and just going to work on it while I'm waiting for my high-speed NBN internet to connect. Modem's over there, it's actually just clicking away. It's been clicking away for about 24 hours now, and JCM900, this is what we have on the bench today. So a few things we're going to do. So customers complaining about funny sounds and bits and pieces. We're going to go through and clean things up. I mean, even things like, you know, where is it? There. There's a hair in that pot, you know, and that you know, it sounds silly, but that could be the culprit. Could be some dirt in there, who knows what. Anyway, we're going to go through it and check over stuff. I see some things here that I'm going to correct. I don't care who's done what, but this thing here is not standard. So we're going to fix that. And I'm going to talk to the customer and ask them if they've modded it or if they've asked for it to be modded. And if they have, I'll find one capacitor that can fit neatly into this spot instead of this thing dangling here like this. Otherwise, it's likely just going to be a new set of tubes and some filter caps. Now, luckily I have one in stock, but this amp takes two. And they are 50 microfarad by 50 microfarad, 500 volt. So this is the exact cap that we need, except I've only got the one in stock. So I'm going to have to order another one, which is fine. Just means, you know, waiting longer, and it sits on the bench even longer. Let's fire it up. I'm going to check tubes for microphonics and things like that. I'll get a load onto this because I'm going to put a signal through it and just see what that's like through the oscilloscope. And if I remember correctly, it might not even be faulty. It might just need a tune-up, you know. And with valve amps, the best way to do that is change the filter caps. So I'm going to change these two. I'm also going to change... Now, the low voltage electrolytics that sort of basically power the plus and minus of these ICs, which this amp has a lot of. Did you count how many? Who cares? There's too many. I'm not going to worry about these. These tend to be okay. Unless the amp is like 50, 60 years old, it's highly unlikely. These are pretty low stress items. Now I can go ahead and change them, and in fact I think I've got, what would they be, 35 volt, what are they, I can't read, 470 microfarad. Okay, let's see if we can get in there and have a look. So that says, I don't know if you can read that, 470 microfarad, and it's 35 volt. I don't think I have those in stock either. I won't be able to get those from my regular guy. But anyway, we can go, if we want to, we can go and replace all of these electrolytics. So there's two here, and there's two here. There's one in there, and there's one there, and there's a little one there. And there's two on this side, covered in goop. Where else? There's one there. There's these, I don't know if I counted that one, but then there's that one. And that big one, I counted that one already. This big one, which I will be replacing because it's a 450 volt, 33 microfarad. That basically powers your preamp section. The other thing I'm going to do is find where, and I haven't got the schematic yet, so I'll figure it out later. And I'm going to guess it's probably these two capacitors right here, maybe. But I'm going to find out where our grid stopper resistors are, or our decoupling, sorry, not resistors, our grid stopper caps or decoupling caps that go from the phase inverter to the grids of the two EL34s. I will be replacing those as well, because that is going to then guarantee a nice clean bias supply. Oh, and then what I might do, I might get the tube tester out and actually test these EL34s. Let's get started. I'm gonna order some parts first. We're not gonna start anything, but with the magic of YouTube. Alrighty guys, I had a quick look at the schematic diagram here, and what I'm looking for was basically These two oh, hang on, that's not going to work. No, okay, they won't let me highlight it. Okay. These two caps right here, C11 and C12. You can see they're basically your coupling caps that if you follow this, you go down and look, oh, it ends up at the two EL34s on the grids there. You can see it connects to that grid there below the cathode or above the cathode, and that one below the cathode because they just flipped the valve around in the diagram here. And here's your two caps, your 50 by 50 500 volt. That's these. That's that there. Power to preamp. Now that is on a different page. So let's scroll. I think it's on a different page. Hang on. Yes, it is. Ha. So that we're going to find. Let me see if I can find it here. Where is that cap?
5 minutes later.
There it is. Found it. We follow that up. There it is there. So C3. 33 microfarad, 450 volts. So we're going to have to order one of those as well because I've got 22s and 47s. I don't have a 33. The other thing I'm going to try to do is, going back to the amp here, I'm going to locate this on the circuit board, on the schematic. Sorry, I've found it on the circuit board. It's right there. And I'm going to find it on here, so bear with me for a minute. All right, so I've had a look on the schematic to find C15, which is what this is, and how it's identified on the circuit board there. So when we come over here and we look for C15, I find it right there, C15. So it's a 0.1 microfarad, and basically it's coming off the plate and it's feeding onto, so it's coming off the plate of V2B and it's feeding into IC8, which is a MS201. The other thing I wanted to check, because I did look it up before on the schematic here, which I won't go through again, is those coupling caps, C11, C12. It's these little things here. Now these things rarely ever fail. I've only ever seen one fail, and it was an X capacitor, special high voltage, high thing. You can read up about it online. Look up X capacitors. And it was in that JCM30. Oh, garbage man's here. Back to the caps. So I had that JTM30 that I repaired twice for the customer. Once, actually it might have been 3 times. Once it was just horrible. Everything was a mess. I recapped it anyway. I'll chuck the video up here and you can watch the video. That had an X capacitor that was clamping down the voltage along with some Zener diodes for the bias, and that capacitor had failed. I don't have the capacitor here to show you. We're not going to replace those caps. I'm 100% certain they're going to be okay. We are going to figure out this mod here. This is dangerous. Let's fix that. And it's stuck on with hot glue, hot snot. All right, folks. So it's the following day, and through the magic of editing, we have the amp here, different light, because it's a different time of day. I've got the 2 main filter caps installed now. So we have, these are the old ones. So, you know, they're like, what, 25, 30 years old? All right. So the next step is I've got my 33 microfarad, 450 volt cap. Okay. And that's going to go in this position right here where this sort of purplish one is. Now you can see it's a significantly smaller cap as well. So that's great. The next thing I'm going to do, and I'm not going to record this step by step, I'm going to replace this thing here with the correct value and one of, you know. So we're going to put that in, and finally we're going to replace the power switch as well. I got a brand new Marshall power switch. Oh, hang on. Wait a second. Oops. Now I did look at the switch online. It did have 3 pins on each side. It was a, you can see there's only, let's get it out of the packet. Uh-oh. And I'm pretty sure even on the website, yep, this only has 4 pins. So you'll have your AC voltage coming in, AC voltage going out. If we look at the original, we have those two pins, but then you can see this wire here is going down to a third pin on this side. Damn. All right, doing some research, I found that we can use this 4-pin or 4-terminal switch. That's really good news. So basically what it is these old original switches, and I'm not sure if this one's even original, because it doesn't look anything like that one. Then again, they are two different switches in the first place, so you know. This black wire is used to power the neon light inside here. Whereas these, the neon light is self-powered. So it's got an internal connection which just works. So that's good news. Let's replace this switch because this is a nice easy one. Doesn't require any circuit boards being pulled out and 1,000 different potentiometer nuts and blah blah blah. So we'll get stuck into that and we'll move on to the next bit. Parts have arrived. So I've replaced this capacitor here. If you recall, this was what was in its place. It wasn't even soldered in properly on the underside. I didn't get to show you because I just ripped it out and I threw this new one in. So I'm going to put this board back in. Then I'm going to take this board out, which is going to be the fun one because I've got to have to undo all of these. And I'm going to replace this filter cap right here. This was already a working amplifier, so not a lot to do, just more of a maintenance thing. So, but I did want to replace that cap because, yeah, bodgy. So I went to check the bias on the amplifier and I was getting a pretty bad sort of reading, quite bad. And no matter what I did, it was biasing really cold. And when I say really cold, I mean really, really cold. Now, I was able to find a much clearer schematic, and I found that this C15 that I replaced, which was originally this nasty garbage, is in fact part of the bias circuit. And just like in the JTM30 video, there's an X capacitor that helps clamp down that AC voltage before it goes through the diodes and all that sort of stuff. If we look at the schematic, let me get my hands out of the way, and we sort of circling down in this direction here. This is our bias pot. This is the X class 47 nanofarad or 0.047 microfarad cap, and it says class X. This orange drop is not class X. What we need is to purchase one of those to make this amp work properly, and hopefully that'll fix the bias. I know that in the JTM30 video, as soon as I replaced that capacitor, the bias came good again, and I'm sure that's going to happen here as well because there isn't any other issues around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that. I've decided I'm going to change these two caps here, these electrolytics. I think C14, let's go back here. So C14, you can see here, 100 volt, that's part of the bias circuit. And you've also got C13, this 10 microfarad, 100 volt. And looking here, C14 and C13, I can actually see C13, it's supposed to be a 10 microfarad, and this is, it says 10 microfarad. It is up, oh hang on, let's frame things properly. So we can see here there's our 10 microfarad 100 volt and 10 microfarad 100 volt. These two are part of the bias circuit as well. So I'm going to replace these two electrolytics, and I'm going to replace this with the proper cap. So unfortunately, this board's going to have to come out again. Right now, it's sounding like absolute trash. It's the world's coldest biased amp. It's actually going into shutdown. So the valves aren't even working properly at the moment. And having them turned on, I even after 15-20 minutes, I could put my hand on the glass, on the valves here, the power tubes, and they were just warm. They were just lukewarm. So I'm going to go ahead and order those parts for this and carry on. So I've gone ahead and installed that new X capacitor, that's right there, and I also changed these bias caps here to some nice brand new Spragues as well. I figured we're changing electrolytics, why wouldn't you change your bias caps as well? However, upon inspecting the bias, I'm finding I'm getting a really, really, really low value, and it's baffling me, but I'm getting towards the cause of the problem here. However, there's a bit of confusion as well, and the confusion is that looking up schematics for this amp, I'm finding all sorts of different varying information. So the schematic I've found right now, which seems to be pretty clean, however, looking here at these two resistors, on every other schematic diagram, it says it's a 1.1K, and this one says 22, and this one says 4.7K. Going back to the amplifier, that was R24 and R27. When I go to R24 here, it's a 1.1K, and so is R27 here, it's a 1.1K. Now the thing is that when I measure the amplifier, I'm getting a really low bias rating, and now those resistors really shouldn't affect the bias. However, what I'm also finding is I'm getting a beautiful clean signal all the way from V1, V2 and into V3, but then something happens at V3. One side of V3, let's call it V3A, pin 1 and 2, where music signals going in and then out, is perfectly clean all the way up. You know, max volume, zero clipping whatsoever. However, on pin 6, I believe that was pin 6. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pin 6, yeah, the blue wire here. I'm getting a slight bit of distortion and overdrive and clipping, and it's not a nice one. It's kind of really jagged. It's not a nice flat, you know, or it's not even a nice little, it's just really bad. And I did this off camera, my apologies, but I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Now I'm just wondering if, because these resistor values here are different to what I'm seeing on the diagram, I wonder if that is affecting things on this amp, or is it just that this amplifier was made, you know, with different parts on a different day. And the other thing I found is these two big resistors here, which is I believe R33 and R36, on our schematics here and here it says R34 and 35, and then here it says components not fitted, resistors R33 and 36. I'm wondering if these were replaced because they are also not the correct ones. So the ones that are in the schematic are 2.2K, and the ones that are here are 1K. And if we go under here and have a look, you'll see it says PW something 1K0J, and same as that one there. So I wonder if these two resistors are not only incorrect value, but they actually should go here. Okay, so that's another thing as well. Now, what's that part of the circuit? Well, it's just the switch here going from low power to high power. So what I'm going to do is I'm noticing that the bias is really low and the amp is just overdriving and distorting. I feel like the tubes are running cold. I just wonder, for whatever reason, that 2.2K instead of 1K. I mean, on one hand, you're going, oh, what's the difference? 1K, 2.2K. The 1K is actually more than 50% less. So that could be causing an issue. I think it might be wise to put it back. Although having said that, when I look at the wiring here as well, notice that this resistor, according to the schematic, should be wired in here, PK1 here, and there's no wires here. Do you see this pink wire, PK2? This pink wire is the one that's actually connected, and looks like it's going to our well, that other pink wire here, which is our bias supply, I believe. Pin 5, let's have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, oh no, pin 5's here. Pin 4, so that would be a grid. Excuse me. That would be a grid. And then the purple wire here is also going to pin 4, so that's okay. So look, we're just getting our head around how this circuit works. I have had a look at the rest of the bias circuit all in here. All of these resistors are exactly within spec, and they are exactly the values that they should be. And that's this section of the circuit diagram here. So you got your 56K in R7. I've replaced the, where is it, 10 microfarad 100 volt, 10 microfarad 100 volt caps. The pot works okay, I've measured that. The R30 is also 56K, same as R7. Whoops, gone out of focus there. And R31 is 15K. So that's all good. And the diode tests okay as well. So all of that is working great. Now the other thing, the standby switch, on here it says it's a white wire. On here when I look at the standby switch, it's a red and blue wire. However, there is a white wire going to here off the standby, and it does say red on there as well. So I'm just wondering if the colors have just been swapped around for whatever reason. So this is the bit I'm talking about right here. And then the blue wire, well, that goes up into the circuit, and I believe comes out here at diode 2345. And if we look here on the circuit diagram, we can see diode 2345 where the standby switch is. So that part's wired okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep looking and see what I find. Alrighty folks, so this is why I'm thinking there's something wrong with the bias circuit, or perhaps I just need to replace some resistors to change where the bias trim pot actually adjusts things. I've got you set up in front of the oscilloscope because I want to show you how the bias is affecting the sine wave. I'm just going to turn this up slightly. Now, when I say slightly, the volume is on like 1, okay? Because if I turn it up, look, it's just horrible, right? I'm just going to turn it up there. Now you can see what those lines look like. I'll turn it up a little bit more because I want to be able to see how this is going to smooth out. Now I'm going to adjust the bias pot, and I want you to watch what the line does. Okay, well, ignore the let's try that again. Okay, so I'll bring you nice and close. Okay, so it kind of looks like this, you know, mountaintop, and I am running a sine wave through this. Now I'm going to adjust the bias. Do you see what's happening? Look at that line. It's smoothing right out. Now I've adjusted the bias all the way. You can see that there's still a little bit of a line just on this down peak here. The up one not so much. And if I try to, let's see if we can really zoom in on this. You see what's happening here? Well, let's frame properly. So now that I've got a bit more resolution here, check this out. Actually, let's do this. Let's see if we can really notice it now. Okay, so let me grab the bias pot again. I'm going to turn the bias back down. Look what the waveform is doing. A, amplitude is dropping, and B, look at that crossover distortion here on this side on that down peak. The up peak not so much, but it's kind of bottomed out down here and it's a bit bumpy. But when I turn the bias back up, look at that. It's nearly a sine wave. What I'm going to do is leave the bias there, set myself up, and I'm going to take some measurements and see if we're getting closer to the ballpark. All right, so I'm going to work this bias out right now, and unfortunately I need 3 hands to do this, so I'm really not set up to have the camera set up to show you. But what I'm going to do is come up here to the output transformer, and we're going to find 3 wires. There should be a brown wire, which is that one. There should be a white wire here, and there should be a red wire. Now the white and red go to the plates. There's the red one, there's the white one, the plates of the power tubes, and the brown wire tucked in underneath here, this one up the top just above the white wire, is our center tap. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to put the phone down because I need both hands to help me out with this. Now remember, don't ever stick both hands into a live chassis. So I'm going to discharge the amp, and I'm going to measure the resistance between the 2 halves of the output transformer. In other words, between brown and white and between brown and red. And I'm going to write those details down. So, alrighty, so coming over here to my this little spreadsheet I have, I've kind of filled in some stuff already, but basically you can see one side is 41.8 ohms and the other side is 42.7 ohms. Not exactly matched, but close enough. The next thing I'm going to do is turn the amp back on, and I'm going to measure the voltage drop between those 2 points. So I'm going to leave one of these probes. I'm going to use an alligator clip because I don't want my hand in there anymore. I'm going to have one side connected to brown and the other side connected to red. Okay, and that's going to tell me the voltage drop that I'm getting through the output transformer. Oh, and I'm going to do the other side as well. Alright guys, so I went ahead and took my measurements for the voltage drop I'm getting across each side, and we look down here. On one side I'm getting 1.61 volts, on the other side I'm getting 1.77, and that kind of corresponds with our resistance that we're getting there. Now what happens is I also went ahead and measured the plate voltages, 434, okay, and we're getting about the same on each side. And this gives me a plate dissipation of about 16.7 watts on one side and 17.9 on the other. If memory serves me correctly, and I can double check that with my little thing I have up here, 17.5, you can see here for the EL34s, 25 watts is 100%, 17.5 is basically spot on where it should be. And if I go down here to my little percentage calculator, we're running at roughly about 55 to 60%, which is fine by me. And like I said, we're not going to get a perfect match. What I've done there is, despite the fact that, and I'm bringing you over here, because what I've done is put the old mullards in here that A, aren't matched together very well anymore, B, they're a bit old and haggard. So I'm going to turn the amp off. I'm going to let the amplifier cool down because those tubes will be nice and hot. I'm going to remove them and I'm going to put my brand new tubes back in. And then we're going to measure things again and see what sort of waveform we get and see what sort of specs we get on here as well. Because when I changed over the tubes the first time, it seemed like the amp was running way too cold no matter what I did. So I'm going to just let this amp cool off for a few minutes while I go and have a bite to eat. I'll come back and then we'll mess around with swapping tubes and see what happens. So I've made a second chart here with the original tubes that were in there and then the new ones that are in here now. And I've done nothing to the bias. It's still maxed out though. Okay, so in effect we should be red plating. However, you can see here that these tubes are a lot healthier for starters. Not by much though. Well, according to the chart, you know. Will we need to replace the tubes? Probably not. However, what I am going to do, I'm going to swap these tubes around and see if we get a different result. So I've just turned the amp off. I'm going to let the new tubes cool down. Let's look at the numbers and actually figure out what's going on here. So we can see resistance will stay the same because we haven't changed the output transformer. So those numbers stay the same. we can see that the voltage drop has increased with the new tubes. So this side was 1.77 and then we have 1.61. This side we're closer to 2, so we have 2.06 and 1.9. So still a similar voltage drop, like the 0.1 roughly, nearly 0.2. Here we can see, you know, 1.9, oh yeah, 1.9 and 2.06. Getting down here gets interesting. We had 18.37751 watts dissipation, and this side we had 16.36393 watts dissipation. Okay, and all those numbers again correspond to everything else that's happening up here. And if we go here, we can see that with the new tubes, the voltage, the wattage, the plate dissipation is 20.55 on this side and 18.555 blah 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 on the other side. So we're still off by about 2 watts per side if you look carefully. So nothing's changed there, which is interesting, but that probably more corresponds to the transformer being out of balance as well. See, this is why it's important to measure the plate voltage again, because we can see 434 volts DC on the plates on this side, and with the new tubes in, we're dropping down to 417. Interestingly, we get 42.3 milliamp on here, 37.7 milliamp here. This side it bumps up to 49 milliamp and 44 milliamp. And if I look at my calculator for the percentage, it's gone from 61 to 68 and 54 to 61. These are closer to spec. In fact, 68 is near bang on. But I wanna swap these tubes around and see if that makes a difference. So let's find out what happens there. Alright, we can see here some subtle changes. A very subtle change in the voltage drop, not by much though. This went 2.02, I think it was 06 before, so it's dropped down. And this went from 1.9 to 1.91. So that's brought them closer together, okay? We can look here, you can see the plate dissipation is pretty much almost identical. Notice, however, and this could probably be more to do with mains voltage fluctuation, we've gone up to 423 volts DC on the plates. What this has done, however, is brought our plate current to 48 and 44 closer together. And if we look at the percentages here, we'll see it's 68 now instead of 69, I think it was before. And 63, and I think that was lower before. And if I undo, oops, wrong button. Let's undo. So we can see here it was 68 and 61, so it's brought it closer together. Nice one. Okay, so I'm going to leave those tubes as is in there, and we're going to wrap this up. Actually, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to plug it into a speaker and test it out. So let's try that. Alright guys and girls, I've got this makeshift set up on my little 1x12 bass cabinet, and the reason for that is pure and simple. I don't have a cabinet suitable for this amplifier, so I've got it set to the 8 ohm setting. Got it through an 8 ohm bass cab, so it's not going to sound amazing. I'm going to make a foot switch for the customer. He requested a small little foot switch that can go on his pedal board that's going to allow him to change between the A and B channel. I'm going to put the input gain on both A and B channel halfway. EQ is in the middle. We'll test the reverb out as well, and we'll check out the master volume on each channel too. Let's turn up the volume. Let's check the reverb. Reverb sounds great. Let's turn the reverb up all the way. Let's really... Not bad. Let's check, actually, let's try reverb on A and B channel and different volume settings on A and B channel. So here's A channel again, volume up louder this time. Reverb up all the way. Let's go to B channel. So I've got the volume down much lower at 2. This was up at 5, and the reverb is on 2 instead of 10. So that's great. That seems to be working fine. Let's turn that reverb down. Okay, master volume down. Let's turn the input gain up and get some overdrive, and turn the master volume down so I don't blow out the mic. That's gritty, that's nice. So that's your A channel. Now let's go to B channel, and this is already a bit of a dirty channel anyway, so let's turn it up. Thanks everyone for watching. We got it sorted in the end. It was a case of really discovering that the bias on this circuit is quite modest, and I'm going to keep it that way. I'd rather have it modest than on the hot side. This amp is going to be playing on stages around Australia with a professional musician that I know and I share the stage with occasionally. JCM900. 4500 model, so not like the other ones that have the 5881 tubes or the 6L6s. This has the EL34s. Hope you liked the video. Please like, subscribe, make a comment down below. You probably owned one of these once upon a time. They didn't have the best reputation in the world, but guess what? It's still a Marshall. They still kick ass, and it sounds good through a stupid little bass cabinet. Well, not stupid. Mark bass. It's good. I like it. I like Mark bass.